I guess sort of my first question would be, the Cellar started life over a decade ago as Brendan's short, The 10 Steps. Were you familiar with that short before you signed on? And if not, what was it about the character of Brian and the script that made you want to get involved?
I was because I knew Brendan from about possibly a little bit before he made the short. I think I'd done a small part in one of his first features called Savage years ago. And I'd seen the 10 Steps, and I'd really wanted to work with Brendan because then I saw Love Eternal in Galway, and I saw Pilgrimage, and I kind of, I knew him from kind of being colleagues and so forth, and I really wanted to work with him. So when he sent me the script for The Cellar, and I knew it was based off the 10 Steps, I was already really engaged by it. But what I loved about it was, I loved what he did at the end, and I found myself, I like to read horror scripts, or at nighttime. And then when it's dark, and then you kind of really get sucked into it. And I found myself being really disconcerted by what the ending of the film was, and finding that it really bothered me how almost upsetting the possibility of the ending was. And so once I read that, I was like, I really wanted to do it. So I was like, Brendan, you have to let me do your fucking movie.
I think the bulk of the film it's set in and around this, this very, very spooky looking house, and I know that you guys all sort of like stayed on the property as well. What was it like sort of being so immersed in that environment?
It was really helpful, I think, for what this movie was, because Brendan has he's a very specific tone about him in terms of what he wanted from this film, and the way he shot it and the way he directed it, it was very well crafted, and it kind of suited what the atmosphere was, because we couldn't go anywhere for those 5 or 6 weeks. So I think Brendan had us captive by virtue of COVID, but at the same time, that really lent itself to what the atmosphere was, because we were filming in this house, we couldn't go anywhere, and it kind of really seeped into your bones, and it was very immersive. And it also was, in a weird way, it's always weird filming horror films, because they're equally odd in that you then look back at sequences and they're kind of really scary and affecting on screen, but then it might not be when you're filming them. But then at the same time, there was stuff we're shooting at nighttime, which really it kind of lent to the atmosphere of it, because we were in this singular place. And I think it kind of created a really kind of nice, strange, unsettling environment, whereby we were all there all the time to make the film, and you kind of felt very enveloped by it.
And I guess it also sort of helped you all sort of connect in this sort of family unit. So obviously it's a family that are living in this house.
Yeah, it did, because it gave myself and Alicia the time, because we had a couple of weeks before filming where we had the time to sort of, get to know each other, and we got to talk to Brendan a lot. So we kind of wanted to create this kind of dynamic between the 4 characters. I think it's really important in the film, whereby it's you believe the relationship between the people, and I think that was really important. So we were able to have that kind of second nature reaction between ourselves that was kind of beyond the lines, as it were.
And you've been a part of, a few horror films over your career. I think, The Hole in the Ground and Till Death are some recent ones, and you've even, directed your own horror film, a few years back now, The Inside. What do you think it is about the genre that excites you and keeps bringing you back?
I think it's fun. B, I believe in ghosts, so they kind of freak me out a little bit. So I'm kind of drawn to that in a weird way, even though I shouldn't be. And I think also there's a lot of really interesting ideas you can do with genre stuff, to do with kind of relationships, and just do with people, and just putting them in strange situations that you can't do in a lot of other types of filmmaking. And I also love the craft of like Hole in the Ground. Lee is a genius, and like Brendan, he's very, very specific, and you get to kind of do very specific cinematic concepts that I think kind of only exist in kind of genre filmmaking, and I kind of love that possibility.
I think Irish horror in particular is having a real moment right now. I think at Fright Fest, where The Cellar also screened, I think of the 12 films, 4 of them were Irish made. The Irish authors. Yeah, there was a vampire comedy, sort of Shaun of the Dead sort of thing, Let the Right One In.
Yes.
No, Let the Wrong One In, sorry. And then there was Mandrake and You Are Not My Mother, and then The Cellar. What do you think it is about Ireland that lends itself so well to these stories?
Well, I think Ireland's kind of I think Ireland, because it's an island, and I think there's a history of kind of, you know, there's a dark history to Ireland, and I think it's only recently we're kind of being allowed to explore some of those ideas. And I think there's a lot more that's going to come, and I think there's kind of a freedom that's happening now with a lot of Irish filmmakers, where they're sort of suddenly feeling like they can go and pull those stories out, and there's almost a certain kind of it's almost like an allowance to create these type of genre stories. I mean, you know, going back to Bram Stoker, there's always been kind of like dark vampire or ghost type elements to the kind of Irish folklore. But only recently, I think that people are sort of having almost the ability to kind of craft those stories. So I think there's going to hopefully more going to come, and I think it's also just. I think there's just happens to be this wave of really interesting Irish filmmakers like Lee and like Brendan, like Brian O'Malley and so forth that are or Kieran Foy and so forth that are now kind of like just getting that opportunity to kind of pull the stories that they want to create.
And outside of the film industry, you have a degree in psychology. You know, does that help with your with all of, you know, with your acting, your writing, your directing?
I fucking hope so. I don't know. I did my psychology degree before I actually wanted to do film. So I wanted to be a psychologist and or else be a writer, and then I kind of ended up gravitating towards film and acting. So I think it kind of possibly helps in terms of just taking a bit more studiously looking at kind of how characters might interact. I think, yeah, I hope so.
And I know that you're busy working on your TV show at the moment, but you've also just, I think, finished recently your latest directorial project, Grey Elephant. Is there anything that you can share about that?
Yeah, we were hoping to have a release this spring. We're just waiting to kind of get our release date. So hopefully it'll be. I think it might be later on this summer. But I wrote that movie. So that's my phone. Sorry.
Okay.
I wrote that movie. Sorry. I wrote that movie during COVID, and it was kind of one of those ones where I had the time to sort of sit down and just kind of write something a little bit different. So I was looking at this kind of relationship. It's like a dark satirical relationship drama, which I think worked out quite well. And I got to work a lot of people I worked on the night shift before. I like working with people where you have that kind of second-hand nature of kind of you understand each other's craft and it becomes fun.
I mean, I'm always insanely jealous of your casts. You know, in Here Are the Young Men, you've got Anya Taylor-Joy and Dean Charles Chapman, you know, Jack Rayner in Cold. And now, I mean, I see you work together in Night Shift, but you know, you've got Brendan Fair, who, I mean, I am the Roswell era, you know, that was like my team. So I'm, you know, insanely jealous. You know, do you think the fact that you have that history in acting sort of helps sort of draw some of these people to your project?
Yeah, I think I'm really lucky. I mean, I think everyone you mentioned is actually someone I worked with before they were in my film. So, you know, sometimes I'm working on projects and then I just kind of become friends with people and get their emails and then be like, oh, what are you doing next week? Let's go make a movie. No, I think it helps. I think because there's something nice. I did a movie with Mike Figgis about 10 years ago. And the reason why I ended up doing it was myself and Mike just met for coffee. And we got on really well. And we just talked about filmmaking and just talked about life and what the film should be. And for me, I think filmmaking becomes, you get to sort of challenge and trust each other when you kind of know each other. So I like working with people who I've kind of worked with. And I think then it kind of, and if you've acted with someone as well, you kind of almost have that level of trust already. And it allows you sort of to kind of create something together. So yeah, I think that's definitely helped because you have that kind of second-hand relationship, which then goes, it's like, you know, with Brendan, Brendan's he's a really clever writer as well. He's written a really beautiful script he hasn't made yet, which I think he will soon. And so myself and Brendan, we'd spend hours just talking about filmmaking. Jack used to have his own cinema. I think it was an Instagram or a blog or something where he'd basically he'd discuss various films and Anya and Dean, all they do is talk about films. So you kind of end up talking about cinema and talking about storytelling, and then it kind of makes you want to create something together, you know?
Yeah. So I'm insanely jealous of your friendship group. But yeah, you're in Australia at the moment for season 2 of Brea. It's not come to UK shores yet, but I'm guessing it probably will do at some point. But for those in the US that are waiting with bated breath, is there anything that you can share on the new series?
I don't know what I'm allowed to share. I'm actually still learning, but we're just in the middle of filming episode 1, and then every time they give me a new script, I'm like, oh fuck, this is happening. I have no idea what's going to happen. I actually really want to know what's going on as much as anyone else has watched it, because we're kind of it's quite fun in that regard, because it's very much one of those shows you kind of understand what your character is, and then you just kind of go in with blind faith and see where the story's going to go, and that kind of, it's as much of an adventure for me, to be honest, as it is to anyone watching it, because I actually have no idea where it's going yet.
I guess final question, sort of looping back around to the Cellar. It's available on Shudder for people to watch, but if you were to plan the perfect viewing environment, what's the best way for people to watch the Cellar?
In a dark cinema on a Sunday night at about 8 p.m. with the doors open behind you, on your own in the cinema, and the cinema's locked and you can't get out, and then the film keeps playing on repeat and you can't stop it.
Preferably with like 10 steps to get yourself out of the screen.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So when you try and leave the cinema down the stairs, it keeps going.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I will thank you so much for your time, and I wish you the best of luck with all your work, and I can't wait to see Grey Elephant.
It's a pleasure. I look forward to your daughter singing Meatloaf for the next 10 years.
Yes, I mean, I have videos of like when she was like 18 months where she's singing the chorus and stuff, and the last thing I see is my, and she's still beating. So yeah, she's going
to be singing "I Could Do Anything for Love." And
I introduced her to.
I remember seeing a.
During the Easter holidays, I pulled out SingStar, and that's got Anything for Love on, and she's sat there with the microphone singing along to I Would Do Anything for Love. So yeah, she's.
And also, that's a really long song. So if you start it, you've got like a certain time period before she's going to get distracted, right?
Exactly. I mean, she's been listening to Bat Out of Hell, so that's probably finished. Right. She's probably now going. It's probably because it's on Spotify. It's probably now going into Anything for Love. So yeah, I probably got like another 10 minutes before I have to go down to her. So
that's a solid 22 minutes right there.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I will let you crack on, and thank you again for taking the time to chat with me.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Bye.
Take care. Have a good morning. Bye bye.